So Elmer, we're in your big rig. This is kind of a famous rig, this truck, right? What's the
It
story? It was one. I mean, you got SWAT teamed out of this rig in Ottawa at the convoy, right? And this was the first truck to get towed or something, wasn't it?
Yes, this was the first truck to get towed. I wasn't exactly in this truck. I was in a
Okay,
different truck,
okay,
just to clarify that. But it was the first truck that got towed. So we're going to go back to the convoy a little bit. I know we're not convoy now. I said it's time to stop protesting and start building. That's where we're at in this country. We need to
Oh
build.
yeah, good point.
We need to build. But going back to that part of the time is we all know this country was being overrun by a bad agenda. A lot of us didn't at the time understand what was actually going on, but we knew something was wrong.
Right.
And as the government was overreaching more and more, we knew we had to do something. But it was almost like we were muscle, whatever. We were hand tied. We couldn't do anything
Right.
till eventually the it got so bad. It had to get to a certain bad where we just said this can't go on anymore.
Right.
And that's where the Trucker Convoy started. I know it started way out in BC. We did some border rolls where we do slow rolls at the border because all of a sudden half our drivers couldn't cross the border anymore, and so we kind of felt we had to do something. And it wasn't that we stood up just for the truckers. That just, in my opinion, gave us the door in because now they were doing our industry. Because I tried screaming at the top of my voice for when the nurses stood up. There's a bunch of people that stood up and were trying to get the message out there, but it was so hushed down and so pushed down that the voices very often didn't make it very far.
Right.
So the trucks was kind of, okay, now we got big equipment and it is a lot harder to shut that down or to close that off. And I think by that time a lot of the police probably also realized that something isn't right. That's not why they started being police officers, because they were going to go up against their fellow men. That's not what they were hired. That's not why they took the job, right?
Right.
So when this convoy went to Ottawa, I just right away knew I had to do it.
Hmm.
And it was a very, in my experience, a very God moment at the time.
Right.
There was so much support and so much, you could just feel the desperation. You literally feel the desperation. Not only desperation, but now when the trucks came, there was a sense of hope.
Right.
And I think that's where we're at right now. Again, we're at a point where a lot of people, they're getting very desperate because they know something isn't right. But where's their hope?
Yeah.
And you see some of it when you see the peer crowds, because they're just desperate for hope. And I understand that, because when I went to Ottawa, I was in the same trade. Pierre is he's gonna be our next man. And as I learned more stuff throughout the time, I realized that's still Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
He's still part of Ottawa. He's still part of that group that forced this whole thing on us Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
So Grant, when you came around with your message, and I'd like to hear more of just your word for Canada, because that, when you spoke, it resonated with a lot of us, and we realized, and maybe it was even your message which made us realize that Pierre is not talking about the hard issues. He's talking about symptoms. He's talking about, just bandaging, paying less tax. Yeah, that might be good, but is that going to fix the problem?
Right.
It still won't fix the real issues in this country. So hearing your message was a real, it just gave us hope again. So I pray that the message you have, not only for Alberta, but for the nation, is just going to breed a sense of hope into everybody again. So take it away.
We met here in central Alberta at the time. Excuse me. The convoy came back to Alberta after Ottawa, and people were pretty beat up. And at that time, they were actually splattered around Alberta in different barns and groups hanging out because they thought they might roll out again. And for me at that time, I was in BC and Alberta. I was actually running in the Conservative leadership race because I thought the Conservative Party, which I was a part of my whole life, seriously needed reform. And I was talking about stuff in 2022 about what the Conservative Party wasn't doing in relation to this post-national agenda that Justin Trudeau was talking about. I was talking about COVID being an opportunity for a reset, that we were being told that that was the case. We were hearing about all the foreign interference in the country, and yet you consistently did not hear the Conservative Party challenging any of this stuff. So I was actually raising that banner up, if you will, that flag up within the Conservative Party. And as people at that time, remember, that's the spring of 2022. I'm talking to people in conservative Canada. Um, we're talking about these things, and the big question then was at a kind of very elemental human level was, where is our country gone? Because we weren't recognizing what was happening. We weren't understanding why our laws were being ignored. We were seeing the things that we thought were embedded in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and these freedoms that we thought were secure, that we thought were from God, that couldn't be touched by the government, were suddenly being ignored and trampled. And we had unmarked police beating the hell out of people in Ottawa on the streets, and it was a real time of shaking in the country, and a lot of people started to wake up from that convoy and that from that experience. And so I guess there's a lot that I could talk about because we're in a federal election campaign. As you know, I'm running here in Ponoka-Didsbury, and one question I wanted to ask you was, do you feel like the flame of the convoy is still alive in Canada? Are you seeing that with your colleagues, your associates, your peers? Where are you seeing it? How how does it look from this cab when you're driving around this country and you're seeing what people are saying, and how they're feeling?
So I think there's, to a certain extent, people have maybe resorted back to just either ignoring what's going on and back to, I mean, we all have lives to live, right? We have families to feed. We go back to work, but there's still always this underlying sense that something isn't right. Something is not right, and we see it across the nation that there's still a lot of people that are they're still looking for hope. They're looking around. Where can we? Where they're desperate. I just talked to somebody yesterday that she basically said if Carney's going to get in, she'll have a mental breakdown. That's how desperate she's looking for hope. And I don't think she's the only one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in this country that know something is wrong.
Right.
And we will need to have an intervention, or else this country is going to be hopeless.
Yeah.
So, and then that really brings us down to the real root issue is, the further we stray away from the Creator, from God, the more hopeless we're going to be. And this country, and you keep saying that this country was originated under God's supremacy, right?
Yeah.
I'll let you explain that because you're a lot better at that. So what do I see in the country? I still see a lot of people that are they're maybe not actively out there. They're doing their regular thing, but they're looking.
Yeah.
And they know that we don't. A lot of them know that in the existing Ottawa, what's happening there, that's not our hope. We might, for example, Pierre, he might have some regulations that are somewhat better than Carney, but it's still the same machine.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean that's my take. When I saw the inside of it, and I had my journey inside the belly of that beast, inside the Conservative Party of Canada. I didn't see a system that wanted to actually have those deeper conversations, and we're still seeing it. And when I say that, I mean there's so many of them. Like, we're having conversations. This nation is processing things at kitchen tables. Like, why is it okay to beat the hell out of Canadians at the convoy? And now this last 2 years, we've had hordes of Palestinians marching around in this country, burning our flags and calling for the death of Canada. Why is that okay? And how did we arrive in this nation at a two-tier policing system? And we are having we're having symptom conversations only. Like, it's okay to say, well, you know what, I oppose anti-Semitism. That's really great if you oppose anti-Semitism. But when are we going to actually have the conversation about militant Islam and how compatible militant Islam is with our Canadian culture, values, and traditions? And so, I'm interested that you bring that up, because I do hear a lot of people, especially in Alberta, and especially in Ponoka-Didsbury, actually talking about God in relation to this country and going back to an understanding of the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And while people in other parts of the country might scoff at that or whatever and say, um, that conversation has actually been made very easy these days, because there's all kinds of advocates for the values that built this country as being defined as Christian, flowing directly out of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I always say, when I have this in any of my meetings, I'll just say we need to actually replug our values back into the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And what I say to Canadians is, well, look, that God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the best thing about that God is that he gives us the absolute freedom not to choose him. And that's where our freedom comes from. And that's why we get to be, libertarians or humanists or atheists or whatever it is you want to be, or anything else. Excuse me, but we've got to realize that is a part of what this nation is, and that gives us the ability to say yes to some things and no to others. We're not going to start having conversations in this country about whether we should tolerate Sharia law, for example, because that doesn't really fit into what the wiring of this country is. And Sharia law is a big step beyond worshiping Allah. And these are some of the conversations that we have to have, that everyone seems to be afraid to have. Yet by not having them, it's what's actually causing the country to break up. So, there's so much here. And in a sense, it's quite cool to be sitting in this truck here in Alberta, because Alberta is in a sense, it's the anchor point for freedom in Canada. It's the anchor point for sovereignty in Canada. And actually, for me, Ponoka-Didsbury, there's like 4 or 5 days left till the end of this election. There's 40 or 50,000 people in Alberta in the riding who don't normally vote. If they showed up and vote, it would blow any kind of conservative vote tally aside, and we'd have a new MP in this riding here that would actually be championing for the true freedom, wealth, prosperity, security of not just people in Ponoka-Didsbury, but Albertans, and ultimately for all Canadians. And so, it is quite a potent symbol to be sitting here in a convoy truck. You've taken the time to come out from Manitoba, drive out here to Alberta to this riding. There's a 53-foot trailer on here that's got a wrap on that's talking about the United Party of Canada. It's talking about Alberta sovereignty first, which means sovereignty for Albertans first, because we're going to create a beachhead for freedom for all Canadians. And so I don't know. I mean, what triggered or what catalyzed you or brought you out into wanting to come out and take that time off? I mean, you're a contractor, you're a trucker, you're a farm contractor. This is, spring. This is probably a really busy season. That's launching right now, probably this week or last week. I don't know, in Manitoba. But what kind of birthed that in you to do this?
Well, so ever since I've first heard you speak, I believed in what you were saying. You were speaking from the heart, and it was from your heart to my heart. I believed it, and I kind of see that as far as we've seen in this country, that's our your vision is the only hope this country has. So who am I from Manitoba? There's a couple of things I definitely want to have Manitoba part of it, and I just want to do the little bit that I can, which is, having a big sign. I figured it could make a difference. People might see it and might rethink as to who they're voting for, because a lot of us are so used to just voting for the Conservative Party.
Right.
I used to be there. That's what I used to always vote for.
Me too. Yeah.
And but we need to change that, because they've let us down. Like we can go back, when carbon and that whole thing started with the deaf and the trucks. That was way back, and in 25 years, the Conservatives have not. I don't think they've ever tried going away from it, other than Pierre is now saying he's going to reduce the carbon tax. But it goes way back from that. We go back to when that whole thing started. The government started interfering with the economy. They started interfering with efficiency. The manufacturers were forced to put stuff on the trucks that made them more expensive, break down more often, and same with the farm machinery. All my farm machinery deal with the same thing. We have the systems in there that Well, I mean, honestly, we delete them because they tend to break down and not work.
Mm.
They burn more fuel because of it, and now you got, in addition to that, you got to put in DEF yet. So in my critical mind, it doesn't make sense that you're saving the environment by burning more fuel,
Yeah.
because you literally burn more fuel with those systems, and they break down. So now you got to have an extra tractor just in case the other one breaks down. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So, probably a lot of people listening to this will know what DEF is. DEF is, from a layman's perspective on this, it's a fuel additive. It's supposed to clean the exhaust system, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced that it actually does that. It sure has added a lot of costs. Trucks are more.
Mm-hmm.
People are keeping older trucks on the road that don't have it on, and you're breaking down more, and it's actually costing more per mile to transport stuff, which is another addition to the inflation pressure on
Yep.
on Canadian families. And it's crazy to think, however much a new truck costs, you're paying more for this stuff, and as soon as people are buying them, they're rewiring the trucks to actually bypass the DEF system. So it is crazy. So there's so many things, like we need to doge this country
Absolutely.
on so many
Yep.
levels, and this mandate for truth,
Yep.
for sanity, for justice, for uprightness. I always say uprightness is about making the crooked straight. It's time to do that in this country. So I mean,
It was very interesting. I'm just going to barge in here a little bit. You talked about truth, and I've said this numerous times. I did not go to Ottawa just to have Trudeau removed, because I mean we've seen a lot of that push to have Trudeau removed. We can remove Trudeau, but if we still don't have truth and we still don't hear truth, you mentioned truth, and that's why it triggered that. It triggered that in me. We need truth in this country. That's what we need. If the general public that kind of just listens to the mainstream media, so to speak, is that truth? We need to question what is truth, and then and actually come back to truth in this country.
yeah, like one of the most glaring examples about that right now is everyone thinking that Orange Man Bad is the problem, and he's impacting our election, and he is hurting our economy. I mean, the truth is, President Trump saying to Canadians, you're going to get tariffs because you're bad neighbors, you have a dirty backyard, and your fence sucks.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, he's saying you need to clean up fentanyl production, industrial scale fentanyl production. You need to clean up human trafficking, and not just human trafficking, child trafficking, child trafficking, and that's a grim reality in terms of some of the stuff that's going on with that. And for those of you who might be interested to find out a little bit more about that, you can listen to the National Citizens Inquiry. And there was a gentleman there called Mr. Lemon who spoke on that, and some of the stuff that he's talking about with regard to child trafficking in Canada would make you sick. That's why President Trump is asking us to do this. But the truth here, the truth for Canadians is, you have to realize that what's actually happening is our two political parties, the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, have both responded to that request to clean those value-driven issues up, and their response has been to enter into a trade war so that Canadians have to pay more, Canadian businesses shrink because of the tariffs, and he's asking us to clean up some things that we should want to clean up, because we don't want organized crime running human trafficking, and we don't want organized crime running, fentanyl production in this country. But the truth is that our government has actually chosen to protect organized crime over protecting the Canadian people in this country.
Yep.
In terms of tariffs, in terms of just not fixing the root issue, and we must see that. And this is the problem with just doing the same thing that we always do. I talk about this like I call conservative thinkers like muscle memory. I mean, the Conservative Party have left the conservative people. They just happen to have the name, which keeps people in Stockholm syndrome about what the party's doing. Like Bill C4, just to go on a bit of a rant here on that. Bill C4 was passed by every single conservative MP, and it criminalizes parents if you stop your kids going trans. They have inserted the government into that sacred relationship between a parent and a child, and now parents are going to jail. Like, we spend our life stopping our kids, like, you know doing all the stupid stuff that they
Yeah.
do, right? And when we were kids, stupid kids got tattoos, ugly tattoos in the wrong places, right?
Yep.
Now parents are going to jail if they stop their kids undertaking hormone treatment or irreversible gender mutilation surgery. And that's the Conservative Party that led that. That was Rob Moore, Ed P., that brought that into the House of Commons December 1st, 2021, as a unanimous consent motion. Check it out, and don't listen to all the lies and the endeavors to kind of pretend that that wasn't actually the case. And so these are some of the things that we're talking about in this country. We're talking about freedom, and hey, he's got some kids outside here. Hold on, this would be awesome. So just having fun here. Anyway, those guys. Anyways, so yeah, so this is the bigger conversation, and I don't know, Elmer. This is great. So you're here helping.
Yep.
You're a moving billboard in this riding, and do you have any observations about what you've seen talking to Albertans here? Or what are you seeing what's your observation coming from Manitoba in the middle of this election?
So what I keep hearing in this riding and the different people that we talk to after your meetings.
Yeah.
So after you start explaining as to what's actually going on in this country, some of them have said, "Well, dang, I already voted for the Conservative Party. I wish I would have known."
Yeah.
And we have others that are coming to this and said, "Well, we were going to vote Conservative." And now they hear what you have to say,
Yeah.
and they come and volunteer. Right? They come and they say, "No, we got to change this.
Yes.
We have to change
That's
this."
true.
So we can't keep. Like if we talk about conservative and liberal, and I know we're kind of hammering on the conservatives, and the reason we're doing that is because we've been misled. They're no longer conservative.
Yeah.
And we need to wake up to that fact that we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Right.
We've been doing this for how many years now? And they've gone from wherever they were to being almost the same as liberals. I mean, you look at their, other than some tax issues, I think, but other than that, they're basically like the moral stance is basically the same.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the biggest criticism I have, apart from Bill C4 that I just, went on a rant on there, is the fact that they're not confronting the fact that the country's actually being betrayed. And if there's anything to be give the Liberals credit for, is that they're actually telling us the dysfunctional stuff that they're doing to the country.
They're actually telling us what they're going to do.
They're telling us
they're going to wreck this country.
We're going to be a first post nation state. We're going to allow foreign interference. COVID's provided us with an opportunity for a reset. The biggest indictment is on the Conservatives, who are being told what the Liberals are intending to do, what the Liberals are committing, and what their acts of commission are to betray the Canadian people. But the Conservatives are actually worse, in my mind, because they're supposed to be opposing what the Liberals are doing, and they're actually enabling it because they're omitting to challenge those actual issues. And this is a part of this discussion, and this is where the good people of Western Canada and Alberta need to realize the dysfunction that's coming out of Central Canada. We're being asked to pay for, and that's why Pierre Poilievre is telling us we're going to continue with equalization, so we can just continue the dysfunction. And what I'm seeing is that people are getting fed up with that, and they do want change. They just don't know how necessarily. And you're right, as they talk, they're going, yeah, you know what, you're making sense. And this conversation right now is going to continue after this election in relation to sovereignty. Sovereignty is coming. It was given as a gift to us in 1931.
Which that is actually the hope that you're talking about right now.
Part of it is
sovereignty. Yeah. To me, that's the real hope for this country.
And Alberta's the beachhead for that sovereign freedom in Canada, because once it's established here, just like the beaches in D-Day were the beginning of pushing back Nazi tyranny, so is Alberta the beachhead for freedom in this nation. And don't listen to anybody tell you that this 1931 legislation is just some confused constitutional little argument, because don't forget the Republic of Ireland was given in the same treaty. It's not a separate treaty, the same piece of paper where we were given our sovereignty in 1931. The Canadian people were given their freedom. So were the Irish people, and they went ahead and they formed a constitutional republic, and that's how they came out from British rule. And what happened here is we were given that gift, and whoever it was in Central Canada, the infrastructure, I'm going to call them parasites, They just decided, hey, we'll just be the ones. We're going to hold this crown in position, and we're just going to be the ones that step behind the curtain instead of the king or the queen. And we're going to run this whole thing with governor generals and all this stuff. We're going to keep Canada poor and pretending like someone else makes the decisions while we do. And you know what? The jig is up, and this sovereignty conversation is on the table. There are parasites in this country that are sucking the blood out of the people of this nation, and we're going to stop it. The conversation starts now, and this election's huge. And so it's an honor to be sitting here in this cab, part of that energy of the convoy. I don't believe I don't believe that those embers, that fire of freedom, has gone out.
Nope.
Actually,
No.
I think it's still burning around this country. And people, as you say, we can't just keep protesting. We got to build. We got to do something. We got to make a governmental voice, and do everything in our power to create a peaceful pathway to see our people free and to see our children and our grandchildren free, so that our kids never have to have this conversation again.
Yeah.
And so this election is not just about Canadian politics; it's about geopolitics. And we're dealing with geopolitical forces because post nationalism is a UN driven control agenda. Western alienation is a separatist movement that I am championing to have its roots in actual sovereignty, so that all Canadians can be free from sea to sea. And it's a bit like giving your dog a bath and losing all the fleas. That's what we want to do. And don't forget, we have Americans saying, if you guys don't fix your backyard, we're not going to let Canada destabilize continental security. You guys will be Americans, and that's how we'll fix it. And I think in that sense, he's serious because he is America first. So we got to look at this stuff and have these conversations. I'm speaking the next 3 or 4 nights here in Ponoka-Didsbury. If you're listening to this, tell your friends, get on Facebook, get them to vote, even if they're not voting. Get them to come out and create a platform for a different voice to actually start to reshape this nation. And so Elmer, awesome to talk with you. Yep. Awesome to be here. And any other just reflections before we wrap this thing up?
Well, I would just like to really thank you for taking on the call and just the knowledge you have and everything that's going on and taking a stand. I really want to thank you for that.
It's a pleasure. I mean, I can't do this alone. That's people like you that are sacrificing greatly to come out and do this, and they're all over.
They're all over.
They're all over this country doing it. We got people driving out from BC to Dornoch. We got all kinds of people here in Ponoka-Didsbury and from other areas outside of the riding. They're coming out, and this conversation is changing. So thank you. So thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here and hang with you, my friends. So it's good. Awesome.
Well, let's
awesome
do this.
Let's do this. Let's do it. Yep. Let's just do a proclamation.
Yep.
Honk here about freedom for Canada.
Freedom for Canada.
That's awesome. Okay.